You ever glance at a group of kids and do a double take, thinking, wait, are they supposed to look like that already? I remember the first time I noticed it. My neighbor's little girl, who I swear was still in pigtails last week, suddenly standing taller than me, with the kind of confidence only a tween who's sprouting faster than a garden weed could have. And don't even get me started on the hormones. They hit like a surprise thunderstorm. Early puberty isn't just about growth spurts or body changes. It's the emotional roller coaster that sneaks up on everyone. Mood swings that make you wonder if you accidentally walked into a teen drama, sudden interest in grown-up topics, and yes, even that awkward social anxiety that shows up before you can blink. But here's the thing, this isn't your imagination. Kids are starting puberty earlier than generations before, and as parents, or let's be honest, the adults who care deeply but sometimes feel clueless, it can feel like the rules changed overnight. In this video, I'm going to walk you through what early puberty really looks like, why it's happening, and most importantly, how you can support pre-teens through it without losing your mind or your sense of humor. Trust me, by the end, you'll feel prepared, empowered, and maybe even a little relieved. Let's start with the obvious. The physical signs. You know, the ones that make you do a double take in the grocery store or at school pickup. Early puberty often shows up in ways you'd expect: breast development, growth spurts, body hair, but sometimes in ways that surprise even the most seasoned adult. I remember seeing a 9-year-old girl walking past me with more confidence than some high school seniors. The first thing you notice is her height, then her posture, then that unmistakable spring in her step that comes from suddenly feeling different. For boys, it's sometimes less obvious at first. Voice changes, a sudden growth spurt, or a bit more muscle definition, but just as startling. And then there's acne, which, bless the poor kids, seems to arrive right on schedule, making them painfully aware that their bodies are no longer entirely their own. But here's the kicker. The emotional side often hits harder than the physical. Early puberty isn't just about bodies growing faster, it's about brains catching up, or more accurately, scrambling to catch up. Mood swings are real and intense. One minute, a child is laughing over a cartoon, the next, they're snapping at a parent for the simplest reason. Suddenly, a friend's comment feels like a personal attack, a small mistake becomes a catastrophe, and every interaction is emotionally charged. And then there's social awareness. Kids who develop early notice differences between themselves and their peers, which can lead to insecurity, self-consciousness, or, on the flip side, showing off because they feel older than they actually are. I've watched young girls start caring about makeup or fashion years before I expected, and boys suddenly fascinated with adult topics they barely understand. It's both fascinating and a little terrifying to witness. Psychologically, early puberty can spark identity confusion. These children are navigating complex social hierarchies while their brains are still catching up to their bodies. It's a recipe for stress, anxiety, and sometimes poor decision-making, not because they're rebellious, but because their emotional regulation systems are still under construction. The key takeaway: early puberty is as much about what's happening inside the mind as it is on the body. Parents and caregivers need to recognize the signs early, understand the emotional impact, and prepare to offer guidance, not judgment. Kids need adults who can ride this roller coaster with them, offering calm, reassurance, and honest conversations that make them feel safe in their rapidly changing bodies. So when you notice your little one suddenly looking or acting older than expected, don't panic. Take a deep breath, observe, and get ready to support them, not just through the growth, but through all the emotions, insecurities, and awkward social moments that come with it. Early puberty may be startling, but it's manageable, and with the right approach, it can even be a chance to strengthen trust, communication, and understanding between parent and child. Now that we've seen what early puberty looks like, the next question on every parent's mind is, why is this happening now, when it didn't happen this early in our day? Trust me, I've asked that same question more times than I can count, and the answer isn't simple. It's a mix of biology, environment, and yes, modern lifestyle. Let's start with the science. Puberty is triggered by a complex dance of hormones. Gonadotropin-releasing hormone from the brain sparks a cascade of sex hormones, which then tell the body it's time to develop. Normally, this happens around ages 10-12 for girls and 11-14 for boys. But over the past few decades, researchers have noticed a steady shift. Children are hitting these milestones earlier, sometimes as young as 7 or 8 for girls. So what's behind it? One major factor is nutrition. Kids today are eating differently than we did growing up. More processed foods, more sugar, more calories overall. Excess body fat can actually trigger earlier hormone production, which nudges the body into puberty sooner than expected. Think of it as the body reading the energy available signal and saying, "All right, let's get this show on the road." Then there are environmental exposures. Chemicals called endocrine disruptors, found in plastics, pesticides, and even some personal care products, can mimic hormones in the body, sometimes confusing a child's developing system into speeding things up. We didn't grow up microwaving everything in plastic containers or spraying every surface with industrial-strength cleaners, but kids today are surrounded by these subtle influences daily. Stress is another hidden accelerant. Chronic stress, whether from family tension, school pressure, or social media comparisons, can actually affect hormone regulation and development. Children under high stress sometimes experience puberty earlier than their peers, which adds another layer of emotional complexity. And speaking of social media, let's not overlook exposure to adult content or peer influences online. Even if kids aren't seeking it out, the visual cues and cultural messages can prompt them to act older, mentally and socially, which sometimes coincides with physical changes. The brain is remarkably sensitive to these cues, especially during preteen years. Finally, genetics play a role. If puberty started early for you or close relatives, there's a higher chance it'll happen early for your children too. But environment and lifestyle amplify the effect, which explains why doctors are seeing trends across communities and countries, not just families. Here's the takeaway. Early puberty isn't caused by a single factor. It's a combination of body signals, environmental exposures, nutrition, stress, and genetics. And while you can't control everything, like genes, you can shape nutrition, stress levels, and exposure to harmful chemicals, giving your child a better chance to navigate these changes more smoothly. Understanding why this is happening helps parents shift from panic mode to action mode. It's about awareness, preparation, and supporting kids through changes their brains and bodies may not fully understand yet. Early puberty might feel alarming, but knowing the triggers gives you the tools to guide your child with calm, empathy, and confidence. Let's be honest, watching a child go through early puberty is like being on a roller coaster you didn't buy a ticket for. One moment you're calm, thinking, they're just growing. And the next, they're tearing through a mood swing so dramatic, you feel like you've stumbled onto a reality TV set. And yes, parents are human. Feeling unprepared, confused, sometimes even guilty, is completely normal. I remember a mother confiding in me about her 10-year-old daughter who suddenly refused family dinners, claiming she needed me time in her room. At first, the mum panicked. "Is this rebellious behavior? Am I failing her?" she asked. The truth? It was neither rebellion nor parental failure. It was an early adolescent trying to navigate emotions her brain wasn't fully ready to handle. Recognizing that distinction is crucial. The emotional toll on parents comes from several angles. First, there's surprise. Kids who were previously little suddenly develop adult-like concerns, fashion choices, crushes, or social comparisons that leave parents feeling a step behind. Second, there's empathy overload. You worry about their self-esteem, peer pressure, and exposure to adult topics they're too young to fully process. Third, there's frustration because you want to guide them, but their reactions can feel unpredictable, even unreasonable. Common missteps I've seen: overreacting, lecturing, or dismissing their feelings as just a phase. Believe me, these approaches rarely work. They often push children into withdrawal or rebellion. On the flip side, ignoring changes or assuming they'll figure it out, leaves kids feeling unsupported and isolated. The key is balance, observing, listening, and responding with calm guidance. Here's a practical example. A young boy started showing early signs of puberty and suddenly became irritable and withdrawn. Instead of scolding, the parent sat with him, casually checking in about how school and friends were going. Over time, the boy opened up about feeling weird compared to peers. That small, patient approach made all the difference, fostering trust rather than tension. It's also important to normalize emotions for both parent and child. Puberty, especially early puberty, is intense, confusing, and sometimes messy. A little humor, gentle honesty, and reassurance go a long way, saying something like, "Your body and feelings are changing faster than a Snapchat filter, and that's okay," can break tension and make a child feel seen. Finally, remember that parents need support too. Sharing experiences with trusted friends, parent groups, or professionals can prevent overwhelm. Early puberty is a shared journey, not a solo battle, and knowing you're not alone can make handling tantrums, mood swings, and early independence far less stressful. The emotional roller coaster for parents is real, but manageable. Recognizing your own feelings, staying calm, and meeting your child with empathy and clear guidance creates an environment where both of you can navigate these early changes with confidence, and maybe even a little grace. Supporting a child through early puberty is less about dramatic interventions and more about creating steady, trustworthy guidance. Think of it like being a lighthouse in a storm. Kids may be tossed around by changing emotions, confusing social dynamics, and rapid physical growth, but a consistent, calm presence keeps them from drifting into unnecessary stress or shame. First, start with conversation. I can't stress this enough. Talk openly about bodies, emotions, and social changes. But openly doesn't mean delivering a lecture that feels like a biology exam. It means small, age-appropriate dialogues sprinkled through everyday life. A casual, "I noticed your body's changing. How's that making you feel?" opens the door far more than a formal sit-down ever could. It signals curiosity without judgment and reassures them that their feelings are normal. Next, address emotions head-on. Preteens experiencing early puberty often feel confused or embarrassed. Encourage them to name their emotions, whether it's frustration, excitement, or anxiety. Simple tools like journaling, drawing, or talking through scenarios with a trusted adult can help them process these feelings. And yes, humor can be a secret weapon. A light-hearted, relatable comment, like joking about the chaos of mood swings, can help diffuse tension while normalizing their experience. Peer pressure and social dynamics require attention too. Kids hitting puberty early may feel different from classmates and may act out or withdraw as a result. Guiding them to develop self-confidence and resilience is key. Role-playing situations, discussing "what would you do" scenarios, or even practicing polite ways to decline peer pressure can give them confidence in real-life moments. Don't forget boundaries and structure. Early developing preteens still need limits and routines, even if they feel older. Clear rules around screen time, bedtime, and responsibilities provide a predictable framework that helps regulate both behavior and emotions. Structure doesn't stifle independence. It supports it by giving them a safe framework in which to explore their growing autonomy. Observation is just as important as conversation. Pay attention to changes in mood, social engagement, or school performance. Subtle signs, like sudden withdrawal from friends or irritability over minor issues, can indicate stress, insecurity, or anxiety. Early attention allows you to intervene calmly before small issues escalate. Finally, normalize support systems. Kids need to know that seeking help isn't a weakness. Encourage talking with school counselors, trusted teachers, or health professionals when questions or worries arise. Reinforcing that it's okay to ask for help builds resilience and shows them that managing early puberty isn't a solo challenge. Supporting preteens through early puberty is a mix of presence, empathy, communication, and structure. With consistent guidance, they can navigate these changes with confidence, while parents gain reassurance that they're steering their children safely through a confusing, emotional, and sometimes overwhelming stage of life. The goal isn't perfection, it's connection, trust, and helping them feel seen, understood, and capable. Even with the best guidance, there are moments when early puberty raises questions that require more than parental intuition. Knowing when to seek professional help is crucial, not because something is wrong, but because early intervention can prevent stress, confusion, or potential health issues from escalating. Let's start with the medical side. Pediatricians are your first stop. They can assess whether growth patterns and hormone levels are within a healthy range. Signs that warrant a checkup include development before age 8 for girls or 9 for boys, rapid physical changes over a short period, or any extreme or asymmetrical growth. A doctor can order simple tests and, if needed, refer you to an endocrinologist who specializes in hormone-related development. The goal isn't to panic, it's to get clarity and ensure your child's body is progressing safely. Mental health is equally important. Early puberty can trigger anxiety, low self-esteem, or social stress, particularly if your child feels different from peers. Counseling or therapy isn't just for crises. It's a proactive way to equip children with coping tools, emotional vocabulary, and strategies for handling peer pressure or bullying. Think of it as giving them a mental toolkit to navigate changes they didn't ask for and often can't fully understand. Communication with professionals doesn't replace parenting, it complements it. For example, a counselor might suggest conversation techniques that make a child feel heard, or a pediatrician might explain nutritional adjustments that support healthy development. These experts help parents act confidently rather than react out of fear or uncertainty. One important tip: involve your child in the process. Explain why a visit is happening and what it entails in age-appropriate language. Reassure them it's routine, not a punishment, and that it's perfectly normal to ask questions. Empowering them to participate reduces anxiety and reinforces that puberty, early or otherwise, is a natural part of life. Finally, remember this: seeking help isn't a sign of failure. It's an act of responsibility and care. Early puberty can feel overwhelming, but with proper guidance, professional input, and open communication, children can navigate the stage safely, emotionally, and socially. Parents who approach it with calm, knowledge, and empathy give their children the strongest foundation to thrive. By combining observation, proactive dialogue, and professional support, you're not just reacting to early puberty, you're guiding your child through it with confidence, reassurance, and understanding. Sometimes the best thing you can do is know when to ask for a little help, and that's perfectly okay. Early puberty may feel like a surprise storm, but it's one that can be navigated with awareness, patience, and a little guidance. Recognize the signs, understand the causes, and meet your child's emotional and social needs with empathy. Open conversations, consistent routines, and reassurance go a long way, and knowing when to involve professionals ensures your child stays healthy, physically and mentally. Remember, this stage isn't a test of your parenting. It's a chance to strengthen trust and connection with your preteen as they navigate changes that can feel bigger than they are. I'd love to hear from you. Have you noticed early puberty in your children, and how did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments. I read everyone, and sometimes even respond personally. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can navigate these parenting twists together.